Good morning. Come on in out there. Come on in. Today I'm going to do something that I wanted to do in the past for the last couple of years, but I have this big fear of reading in public. I was always a struggling learner. Hello today for anybody that shares this out. I am Dr. Tyra Hodge, and today I want to read the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King that he delivered on a march in Washington in 1963. This speech is still so relevant and powerful today. I think this speech will be alive for 1,000 years. Most people know where I kind of stand on the line of political boundaries. I do have a strong pro-life belief, and I do believe in the empowerment of women and minorities. But I also believe that we need to come together as a country to fix some of these things that are still holding us back. I believe that there's a great division in our country right now. So some of my views may swelter or conflict a little bit, to where on one stance, I do believe that our DACA children are American children. I'm a teacher, so I teach these kids. I help raise these kids. And so these are American children, and they're playing politics with these children. And I don't like it on both sides. And I honestly believe that it's stirring in me so bad, and the struggle within me is huge, that to where if Republicans and Democrats don't quit their mess, that I may just help launch the biggest independent movement that this country has ever seen. So with that being said, I believe that they need to quit playing politics with the lives of these kids. But today is about Martin Luther King Day, a visionary, a man who had a dream. And without his dream, we would not have the civil rights that we do today. The Black people fought a lot to make change in this country. And this is the thing. And Martin Luther King was very clear about it, that there in his speech, that is Black people and white people coming together to do this. And so you'll hear a lot of sides. I find it hilarious because we hear a lot of white people calling other white people racist, when really, it's crazy. And so, but anyway, if you're out there today, I'm about to read his speech, and let's kind of take it in. A lot of times we just hear the I have a dream part, but there's so much more to this speech, and it's so powerful. And what this speech was about is us changing our country. And America is great. We have some of the greatest policies, and there are people that want to change that greatness and turn our country into a slum. And one thing I believe is that we do need to come together as a nation, both whites, Black, Hispanics, Asians. And so I will veer off the speech a little bit just to let you know that right now our Hispanic community and Asian community, some of the DACA children, they're suffering through this racial divide right now, and it shouldn't be this way. Now, keep in mind, I do believe that we are a nation of laws, and that we need to abide by the laws. And I do believe that we need immigration reform. But I do believe that there needs to be boundaries. I lock my door at night. We don't need to just open up borders and turn our country into Venezuela. But the people that are here and that were raised here, they are Americans. And so I know that kind of conflicts with both sides, and it's somewhere in the middle. And I think it's okay to be somewhere in the middle. This diehard Democrat stuff, it doesn't work, because I really have a problem with the diehard Democrats that are black when the Democratic Party was founded, the Jim Crow laws, when they founded, when they try to stop people from voting, that was them. And so I have a hard time with people attaching themselves to that. I have a hard time with people attaching to the Democratic Party when fighting for Planned Parenthood, when Margaret Sanger, the creator of Planned Parenthood, created that to eradicate the undesirables. She meant black people. And so now, as far as the Republican Party now, hey, I have my problems with them right now too, because once the leaders of the KKK were once in the Democratic Party, and sometime in the 90s they switched sides to I don't know why to the Republican Party. I don't know. And so there's things about both sides, but I lean more to wherever to fight for the rights of our people. And with Republicans throughout history, Abraham Lincoln, Republican, and so there's a lot of stuff that people don't know when they're defending one side die hard and defending, the other side die hard, when there's problems with both. And so I'm hoping maybe God will raise up an independent candidate like no other, with some of the values and stuff that we need to hold. I also believe that other countries that seek to be like ours, I think that they need to stand up and fight within their country to make their country a better place. So with that, I'm going to quit rambling, and I'm going to read Martin Luther King's speech. I see nobody's come on to visit me today, but that's all right. I felt like I was led to do this. I'm not trying to get popular, become famous or whatever. It is what it is. The Lord told me a long time ago that he was going to shoot me out like a cannon, and I've never seen that. Some of you have seen the news story recently on me, and that news story is kind of getting around the United States. So that's kind of interesting to see, but yet I'm still Tyra, still broke. And so, still the same person. So I'm interested to kind of see what the plan God has for me in the future. So I'm a 47-year-old, wanting to know what's next for my life. So kind of like some of you. But here's his speech. I have a dream. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration of freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great Americans whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This monumentous decree is a great beacon of light, of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak at the end of a long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still badly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discriminations. 100 years later, the Negro's lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of the American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our country's capital to cash a check. When the architects of the Republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, Hispanics, and Asians, were to fall heir, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on that promissory note insofar as the citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro, Hispanic, Asian, Haitian, African people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in this great vault of opportunities in this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand of the riches of freedom and security of justice. We've also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency now. This is a time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take tranquilizing drugs of gradualism. Now is the time to make the real promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark in the desolate valley of segregation to sunlit paths of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to a solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make injustice a reality of God's children. It would be fatal for our nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not the end, but the beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam will now be content, will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro or the Hispanic or the Asian or the Haitian is guaranteed citizen rights. The whirlwind of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright days of justice emerge. And that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the worn thresholds which leads into a palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrong deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high planes of dignity and discipline. We must not allow creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new malignancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to the distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize their destiny is tied with ours. We have come to realize that their freedom inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone, and and as we walk, we must make a pledge that we shall walk and always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as a Negro, Hispanic, Asian is a victim to unspeakable horrors and police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in motels of the highways and hotels of the city. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their adulthood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing to vote for. No, we are not satisfied. We will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters in righteousness, like mighty streams. I am not mindful that some of you have come out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from the narrow cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by storms of persecution and shattered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghetto of the northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will change. Let us not wallow in the valleys of despair. I say to you today, my friends, even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We will hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day the Red Hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slaves owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 children one day will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but will be judged by the content of their character. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day Alabama, with its vicious racist and its governor having his lip dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right here in Alabama, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join the hands with little white boys and little white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain. The crooked places will be straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and and all flesh will see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I will go back to the South. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountains of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, pray together, struggle together, go to jail together, stand up for our freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day that all God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. Our country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, to thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must come true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightened analogies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curviest slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountains of Georgia. Let freedom ring from the Lookout Mountains of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. When we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every city and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we would be able to speed up that day when all God's children, black men, white men, Jews, Gentiles, Protestants, Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of that great Negro spiritual, free at last, great God Almighty, we are free at last. Dr. Martin Luther King, y'all. So, I didn't have any comments or anything, but thank you for watching. Do watch, share it up. Thank you. Bye-bye.